Hello ladies and gentlemen, what's up? Porkchopper here, and today I will be going over the notes from patch 41 and my opinion on the changes too. Discuss below what you think of the new changes, good or bad. I only do these kind of videos when there is something worth covering. I don't want to spam these kind of videos for no reason. However, I will be doing a lot of these kind of videos in the next month or so with the big 41.3 patch in July and the whole card rework in August, so stay tuned for those. So today I will cover only the main changes in the patch, not all the little bug fixes, to save us both some time. So let's jump right into it. Of course, the most obvious is that Wraith will be available on Tuesday. Very excited to play this new hero and have a few videos coming up next week, so stay tuned for those as well. But the first actual change is for Dekker and her containment fence. Containment fence is now a solid wall that only Dekker and her allies can pass through. Containment fence will no longer apply knockback, damage or a stun, which I presume was meant to help with thermo bonds, but I'm sure they very much did that. If you didn't know, thermo bond before would be able to be triggered by the knockback of containment fence over and over, applying it so they would get a lot of health regen. I swear they fixed that bug a while back, but apparently they haven't. But now containment fence will no longer apply knockback, damage or a stun either way. Then we have Gideon with his black hole, which is his ultimate. The initial pull has been removed, however the steady pull has increased. The steady pull has increased from 300 to 450 units every 0.35 seconds. If you didn't know, when Gideon used his ultimate black hole, there was a very strong initial pull and then the steady pull was a bit lower, so that means people could get out of it. I guess now this is to make it more consistent, but I wonder if this is a nerf or buff, but definitely feels more of a buff to me to make the steady pull a lot stronger to keep everyone locked in for longer on the ultimates. Then we have Grim.exe. The only real change they did for him, again, is a bit of a polish and a bug, but it's to make it so that his ultimate GTFO doesn't go on cooldown for no random reasons, like the animation was cancelled and then deflector shield was immediately activated afterwards, so little stuff like that for Grim. Then we have Kallari, which has a few audio tweaks but something quite interesting. Kallari's Shadow Walk Fade audio can now be heard by enemies. Casting Shadow Walk will now play a sound heard by both allies and enemies, and Cheat Death audio will no longer play if Kallari is already in the Shadow Plane. I guess a few things there to make people aware that if she is in the Shadow Plane or not for enemies and for allies too, which is very interesting how that works, and Cheat Death audio will no longer play if Kallari is already in the Shadow Plane. And that's again a little tweak, nothing special there about it, but you know, nice and cool to have for Kallari. Then we get on to the big ones, Morigesh. One that has been wrecking the mid lane and off lane too for quite some time. The main reason was because of her scaling and how easy her abilities were to use, meaning that she could use them a lot, they did a lot of damage and they were easy to hit. So I've been playing a bit of mid lane recently and I've been getting my ass handed to me by some decent Morigeshes, you know how aggressive she can be. I feel I can't compete in that lane against a Morigesh, so hopefully these changes do it, and do they? Let's find out. First, Mark's mana cost has been increased at all levels, especially early on. Hive damage per damage over tick has been increased from certain amount to this, which again is not that much, but again, as it's a tick damage over time, this definitely will add up to you saving some health. And also the Hive mana cost has been increased too, again more across the board than a rather early game. Then Swarm, which is a speed boost that also gave a health regen when she went through minions or really any enemy, has been reduced to 80 mana at all levels from certain numbers of upgrades. So these are the things they have changed from Morigesh. I believe this is honestly enough. I feel like I said earlier on, she was so strong early game and it seems the mana costs are going to be there, so she can't keep spamming her abilities over and over, and the Hive, which was the lot easier one to hit at safer range, doesn't do as much damage over time per each tick. I'm very interested how these changes pan out for her. Does this mean she will have to build more mana or not? Or if the high damage over time is actually enough to make it not too strong, and that means she is in line and check with the gadgets and the Gideons and the Howies and the Fae offlaners that she needs to be. Fingers crossed, but a nerf is a nerf in the end for a hero that did need it. Then we get to the big one, FaZe. Ever since Age of Intellect came out with her release, she has been dominating the safe lane and probably the off lane as well. So let's see what they have done to FaZe after 6 weeks of waiting. telekinetic link cast range has been decreased from 1900 to 1800 units. This is the range where you have to be to actually cast it to someone. However, telekinetic link terror range has been decreased from 2500 units to 2200 units. This is the range before the actual link broke. So the cast range, which is where you have to cast it to someone, has been limited as well, and also the terror range before it broke has been decreased also. Then telekinetic's total health regen has also been decreased across the board at all levels. However, telekinetic health regen duration has been increased from 2 seconds to a whole 4 seconds. So after these changes, it seems that she will actually be given more health than she has before, so that means Thick Blood, a card I did a video of last week, is going to be very much needed to keep that in check. Then we have Psychic Flare, which was her blind. The blind duration has been decreased all across the board, but at level 4, instead of being 3 seconds, it's 2 seconds, so a whole second difference there, which will be very nice indeed. Again, as an offlaner and a jungler main, this blind has been completely annoying me for the last several weeks, so I'm very glad that it's getting a slight duration change there. We don't see the damage getting changed of Psychic Flare, but then on the rest of it, it's just little polish and bug fixes for phase, nothing there to really stamp out. So my overall opinion of these phase changes, it seems a little, they haven't gone overboard or hammered her down, but there's definitely things that I have to question. For example, as an offlaner, I don't see any of these changes here are going to affect the early game for the offlaner. I think the offlaner is still going to have a really rough time against an aggressive phase. Energy Lance range is going to still be the same, and so will the damage and the root. Psychic Flare blind duration I'm very happy about, but the damage it does is still quite substantial. And also the health regen increase from 2 seconds to 4 seconds also feels like she is going to do dealing a lot more health. Again, more early game, all she needs to use is an ability, and her entire health and her carry's health are all back to full. So I don't know how I feel about that. Again, we will have to wait to find out, but we'll see if that's good enough. And also something I also want to state is that, especially with her Energy Lance, the mana consumption of it was way too low compared to say a Dekker's stun or a Narbas stun. Anyone that could stun early game, they would only be able to use it a few times before they would run out of mana. Phase is a lot more lenient on that way. So again, there's no changes to that. I guess this is a slow change, but after 6 weeks I kind of wanted a little bit more. I'll be playing offlane against her, probably still quite a lot, so I'm going to see if it's actually good or they still need to do something more with her. And finally, the last big one is Revenant. His Obliterate is on topic here, as we all would have guessed. The Obliterate ability now requires line of sight to lock onto a target, which is hallelujah for this one. I mean, wow. The amount of times I've seen this ability fly through walls or geometry at the craziest angles, at the craziest range to deal 600 plus damage to someone is rather crazy. So I'm very glad this is getting changed. The base damage also has been reduced across the board, not too much on that one. However, the card scaling has been reduced too, so that should be enough for it to actually be a bit more consistent and not so ridiculous, and also not do it as much damage. While the mana cost also has been increased, blimey, and so is Scar's mana cost. This is the one where you lock it on to a target and the next instance of damage Revenant does increase damage. So overall, that's pretty good for Revenant. I'm happy. He was a really good hero, but Obliterate was just a little bit over the top, so I'm glad they didn't go bananas on him. And it's quite nice to see that some actual carries are now going to have proper mana costs. And talking about that, our next hero is Wukong, which only got a little change with Staff of Legend. The mana cost has been increased to 90 at all levels, and then Staff of Legend cooldown has changed to 12 seconds at all levels, and Staff of Legend no longer damages or pushes back targets behind Wukong. If you can't remember on top of your head, Staff of Legend is the one that made him do a directional leap, or also push enemies back, dealing damage and slow. So this is a little change, it's not too much, but I'm quite surprised they didn't make Cloud Walk his other ability where he could jump in the air fully and then Cloud Walk, or then jump and slam down to do a slow and damage. I'm quite surprised that that doesn't cost mana still. That should cost mana, Cloud Walker. But a little nerf to a hero that didn't really need it and in the wrong place in my opinion. But again, Wukong was a pretty good hero. Out of all the last few heroes we've had of Phase, of Revenant and so on, I think Wukong's definitely been the most balanced one, but that's quite easy to say. And then we do have a card change, which is the status gem. The price has gone from 5 card points to 6 card points, and the cooldown has gone from 45 seconds to 60 seconds. This is very much needed. Once it went universal, this has been an instant in meta card by absolutely everyone, so this little change will make it not so. Which still was going to be very viable, but just not complete spammed at every single team fight, because it is rather strong. The set fit, all they did for that was a few little changes, like the replay got some polished bugs and fixes, which was very much needed, as what's in the competitive league stuff recently has been quite a pain. And also set for that the AI has had some new difficulties as well, which is interesting. They didn't go into too much of this, but star rewards will now change depending on the base of difficulty. There will be 2 new difficulty settings for solo and co-op playlists. They have renamed the difficulty options, but again we don't know what these difficulty options do. Do they increase damage? Do they increase the competence of the AI? We don't know, but I think this is quite a nice thing for new players to come in to go to easy mode and maybe hard mode to help them improve on their skills. But that's it. I'm going to shut up before I go too long. I like the changes to the 3 big ones, Morigesh, Revenant and FaZe. They all seem decent enough, although I'm still a bit worried about FaZe, especially in the early game, but we'll have to wait and see, as we always do till tomorrow, and I'll probably be covering that and Wraith over the next week. So enjoy the new patch, guys, and I'll see you next time.